The future of Indiana's second largest city will soon be in the hands of a new man. In 1 week, Fort Wayne voters go to the polls to elect a new mayor. Tom Henry seeks to continue Democratic Party control of the city's highest office. Republican Matt Kelty surprised GOP leaders with his primary victory and hopes to win again next week. Tonight, a Focus 15 special, the Fort Wayne mayoral debate, live from the campus of IPFW and the Reinhardt Music Center, using the facilities of College Access Television and Comcast. Here are News Channel 15 anchors, Mark Mellinger and Heather Herron.
Good evening. News Channel 15 and the Anthony Wayne Rotary Club are delighted to bring you this live, the last public debate before next week's election. The mayoral candidates are here with us tonight. I'm Heather Herron.
I'm Mark Mellinger. We are at an absolutely terrific facility tonight, the Reinhardt Music Center, brand new building on the campus of IPFW, and we are excited about this opportunity. We'll be spending the next hour talking to the candidates about issues affecting the community.
So let's get to it. We'd start by introducing you to the candidates for Fort Wayne Mayor, Democrat Tom Henry and Republican Matt Kelty. Please welcome the two of them.
Good evening.
So those are the gentlemen we will be talking to tonight. The questions will be directed to them, of course. The focus is on them. But quickly, we want to establish the rules of our debate. So make sure and tuck these away as you're watching. Heather and I are going to be asking a series of questions from 3 sources: News Channel 15, our viewers, and our partner, the Anthony Wayne Rotary Club.
And each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer that question. The candidate who answers first will then get 30 seconds for the rebuttal after that.
We had a coin flip backstage to see who would give the first opening statement, and Tom Henry won that. He gets the nod. Tom?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Heather. Good evening. Some have said that my public speaking style is about as exciting as watching paint dry. I'll debate that issue on another date. Tonight, I want to concentrate on substance rather than style. Tonight, I hope to share with you some of my dreams, some of my goals, some of my aspirations for this city that we all call home. Before we get into that, though, I want to thank all of you in the audience, all of you viewing. I want to thank perhaps your parents and grandparents, too, because it's through your contribution that we have the wonderful city that we live in today. And we do have a great city. We have an award-winning park system. We have a wonderful zoo. We have great neighborhoods. And it's all thanks to you. But we also have an obligation, because to those who are given much, much is expected. We need to make sure that we pass on to the next generation a city that they'll be proud of as well. I ask you to help me in that pursuit. Thank you.
And Matt Kelty.
Thank you, Mark and Heather, and thanks to each of you for coming here this evening, and to all of your viewers on Wayne TV, I extend my most heartfelt greetings. This may be the last opportunity I have to address such a large gathering, both in a television audience as well in an auditorium like this. I want to waste no time in getting to what I believe is the most important issue facing the city of Fort Wayne today. Namely, how do we rebuild this great city that's been given to us by our fathers and mothers, our grandmother and grandfathers? I would suggest to you that one of the chief inhibitions that we experience in reclaiming a legacy for our children and grandchildren is too much taxes, too much government regulation, too much interference in the private sector. Consider the fact that in the year 2006, between the years 2006 and 2007, government spending in the city of Fort Wayne rose by 11%. Now, we know that city revenues are generated primarily through property taxes and through income taxes, the county option income tax, for example. And we all know about the crisis in our property tax issue, the way property taxes are now punishing homeowners in Fort Wayne. But few of us are very aware of the crisis in our income tax generation. the same year that government spending went up 11%, your ability in Fort Wayne to make a living dropped by 6%. The county option income tax dropped by 6%. And yet our government was not concerned. It decided to spend 11% more, and the next year 15% more. We have to do a better job understanding that mothers and fathers, business owners across the city of Fort Wayne are struggling to simply make ends meet, to keep their business going, to maintain contracts. I think government has a fundamental obligation to reform the way it does business, to allow the private sector to do what it's best at in terms of generating opportunities in the private sector, jobs, sustainable growth. That's why I'm here tonight. I look forward to an opportunity to share my ideas with you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We begin our questioning tonight with Matt Kelty, and this question comes from a viewer of ours. What have you done to earn the trust of citizens of Fort Wayne?
Oh, Heather, I think it's an excellent question. If you look back over my 20 years of involvement in the city of Fort Wayne, I've been involved on boards and community groups across the city of Fort Wayne. I've been a coach of a youth soccer team, and I saw a couple of my former soccer players earlier this evening. I coach CYO football currently. I'm a business owner for 9 years. I have clients who trust me with their most valued possessions in terms of buildings and where they make the money to sustain their enterprises. Time and time again, they've come back to me and asked me to provide them with additional services because they trust me as an architect, as a licensed professional. But most of all, I'm proud of the trust given to me in the fidelity of my great marriage with my wife, Tamala. Tammy, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you earlier, but there can be no greater testimony to a person's fidelity and trustworthiness than the way they conduct themselves in business, in marriage, and in their community. I have earned the trust and confidence of the city of Fort Wayne, and I look forward to, as a mayor, taking that trust and building on it in the context of economic development. Why aren't we doing a better job examining the trustworthiness of how economic development dollars are currently being spent? How many times is it going to take the city of Fort Wayne being taken down a road where we lose millions and millions of dollars of our taxpayers' money because somebody didn't examine the numbers closely enough? Nobody looked at the return on the investment. I mean, trustworthiness can be manifested in many ways. I've given you some examples from my professional background, my personal background as a member of St. Jude Catholic Church since baptism. But also I think it's important that moving forward, the city of Fort Wayne realize they can trust me never to make a deal for them that will be so lopsided as a fairly decent current example in the context of Harrison Square or in the context of the Kitty Hawk deal. We just found out today we lost 300 more jobs.
All right, Mr. Henry, what have you done to earn the trust of citizens of Fort Wayne?
I am most proud of my 20 years of public service serving you on the Fort Wayne City Council. During those 20 years, I worked daily with both sides of the aisle, with Republicans as well as Democrats, to try to reach consensus on those issues that faced the city of Fort Wayne. You know, because when it comes to filling potholes, when it comes to hiring police officers, when it comes to hiring firefighters, it doesn't make any difference whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent, libertarian, it makes no difference. At the end of the day, you try to do what's best for the community. I spent 20 years trying to do that, to earn the trust of the city of Fort Wayne, so that our citizens would know that at least one person at that council table, and actually there was more than just me, but at least one person was looking out for the good of the citizens. I also had the pleasure of serving on a number of boards and commissions in the city, Neighborhood Health Clinic, Science Central. I was on the board of trustees at the University of St. Francis for a number of years. I hope that I filled the role of the trustees as well. Thank you.
You have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, I would encourage the people listening tonight and watching this program on Channel 15 to know they can trust that as the mayor of this great city, I will lower their property taxes, I'll reduce regulation, I'll work with city council to find ways to make it so that we reclaim the great legacy which is the city of Fort Wayne for our children and grandchildren. You have to know that in my heart, I am a Republican. I believe in less government, less regulation. in yielding to the private sector the prerogatives that yield prosperity and wealth and jobs.
Time for our next question, and it will be directed to Tom Henry first. Would your opponent make a credible, capable mayor, and why or why not?
I believe that my opponent is an honorable man. I believe that the attributes that he has professed, that he possessed and possesses over the past 10 months are true. There are individuals in the community that find it perhaps enjoyable to cast slings and arrows either at my opponent or myself. Fortunately, I think those are the minority. I truly believe that our community is looking at qualifications for a new mayor. Both of us in the way of education, political experience, military experience, and the like. I believe that my opponent is sincere in his desire to be mayor. I believe that he truly wants the position, and he is working very hard to gain that position.
Matt Kelty, would your opponent make a credible, capable mayor?
Oh, Tom Henry is one of the finest men that I have ever met, from one of the finest families in the city of Fort Wayne. As many of you may already know, his older brother is a mentor and a great client and a great example of what it takes to make a city grow. So I admire Tom Henry enormously. I believe he would make a fine mayor. He and I have some philosophical differences about the role of government. I respect his views, even though I may not agree with him. I think it is for the people of Fort Wayne to look at each of us tonight and decide for themselves, which direction should the city of Fort Wayne go? If you like the views that Tom espouses, vote for him. He would do a good job executing the role of the office, the role of mayor. If you like the views that I espouse, vote for me, because I will work my fingers to the bone. I will work unceasingly to accomplish the goals that I believe are worthy of this city. Tom would make a great mayor, and I look forward to an opportunity to working with him, whether I win the mayor's office or whether he wins the mayor's office. I think there's enormous work to do.
Tom Henry, would your opponent make a credible, capable mayor? And then a 30-second rebuttal.
I think that my opponent would be a good mayor. I think he would be a great mayor if he would make me his deputy mayor.
Deal. We shook on it.
We shook on it.
Wow.
What the claims that Matt just made are true. Again, he's an honorable individual who deserves certainly a shot at the mayor's office. Thank you.
Our next question will be directed to Matt Kelty first. Our exclusive News Channel 15 News Sentinel poll shows that the unresolved indictment issue is the #2 issue in the minds of voters this election, so we can't minimize it. We need to ask about it. Could electing a candidate who's under criminal indictment have any negative effect on the reputation of Fort Wayne?
Mark, I am as confident as I am standing here tonight that these falsely brought charges will be dismissed. You know, this has been one of the most difficult episodes of my entire life. You work all your life to build a reputation, to serve your community, to serve honorably in your church and with your family, and then someone mischaracterizes something that you thought you had done quite well, quite honestly, and quite correctly. I don't claim to be perfect, Mark, but I do claim to have pure intent, and to do. My goal was to do it exactly the way it was supposed to do. We have always gone above and beyond what I thought was necessary in order to satisfy all of the requirements. Just this past week, a very thorough and vigorous motion to dismiss all of the counts brought against me was filed. I look forward to seeing the results of that, as I hope all of my friends and family, loved ones, and supporters do. These charges, I have some confidence, will be dismissed. We'll have our day in court. As you know, there's only so many things that I can say, frankly. But I'm very confident in my actions and in what I have said. You know, dealing with this issue has been difficult. It's almost like trying to prove a negative, if you will. But I will rely on my reputation in this community and on the track record of my involvement in the community. I have found that there's almost no answer I can give to a question like that that satisfies any group or myself. And only in time and through the courts will this matter be resolved. And I'm confident it will be resolved in my favor.
Tom Henry, could electing a candidate who is under indictment hurt the reputation of Fort Wayne?
Just because a person is indicted does not mean that they are guilty. We must, in this community, realize the difference between those two. My opponent is facing a number of indictments. I know how hard he is working to clear his name. I know his wife and children have gone through a lot of pain as a result of all of this. But my fellow citizens, one of the true rights we have in this country is you are innocent until proven guilty. Just because he's under an indictment does not mean he is guilty. I truly hope that his charges are dismissed, because I think it would be not only good for him, but good for the community. Thank you.
Matt Kelty.
Thank you, Tom, for those very kind words. I want to make this as abundantly clear as I can to each of you here tonight and to those of you at home. In the context of these charges that have been brought before the courts, in the context of what they have suggested that I did, that I did not do, I am not guilty. Let me say that again. I am not guilty. And I have enormous confidence that the courts will, in the end, arrive at the same conclusion.
Thank you. Again, referring to our exclusive News Channel 15 News Sentinel poll, Harrison Square was one of the top 5 issues that determined who people are going to vote for next Tuesday. How will you, if elected, make Harrison Square successful? And I address this to Mr. Henry.
First of all, Harrison Square is here. Our first challenge is to make sure that it is built on time and, if possible, under budget. Harrison Square is a magnificent project for downtown. It can truly be the foundation of much, much more to come. And Harrison Square is much more than a baseball diamond. It's unfortunate that whenever we talk about Harrison Square, all we hear is, oh, the baseball diamond. We have condominiums. We have a new hotel. We have a picnic area. We have retail shops. We're getting inquiries now from a number of entrepreneurs wanting to bring in more restaurants, more coffee shops, even a pharmacy for downtown. What a statement. What a statement they are making to what we want to do with our downtown area. Young people are coming forward wanting to know about the pricing of the new condominiums that are yet to be built. Midtown Crossing is now sold out with a waiting list. We have young professionals buying homes in West Central. Ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't tell you that there is a growing excitement about the promise of downtown Fort Wayne, I don't know what is. Thank you.
And Matt Kelty, how would you make Harrison Square successful?
Well, I've used Harrison Square time and time again during this campaign to demonstrate clearly how I would never put a deal together for the taxpayers of Fort Wayne to shoulder the burden of such an enormous development. Once again, the public's dollars are being sown into a project that I have some real questions about. If elected mayor and the contract is signed, I believe that I will be obligated to execute that to the very best of my ability. As an architect, I have some experience executing contracts through the construction phase. My goal would be to make sure every ounce of value is squeezed from every public dollar spent. But that's not enough. I mean, it's one thing to say no add-ons, no change orders, no extras, and to achieve the plans that were drawn up. But we have to go beyond that as a community. And the mayor must lead the charge to vigorously develop properties adjacent to Harrison Square to the very best of his or her ability. That would be my charge, and that's a responsibility I'm willing to shoulder. I think it's important to recognize the fact that If you go south of Harrison Square, there's a railroad track. It's difficult to develop to the south adjacent to Harrison Square. And to the east is the Federal Building and the Lincoln National Life Insurance Complex. And to the west are more homes, a neighborhood. And if one of our goals is to bring more folks into downtown to live, then tearing down more homes may not be the right way to go. So therefore, the only way to go in developing adjacent to Harrison Square is to the north, potentially. I've already talked to Spiess, Tom Spiess, who is the fellow who put together the Spiess Field House. He took a 150,000 square foot abandoned industrial building in an industrial park on the north side of Fort Wayne. He's now bringing in over 500,000 people a year from all over the nation for these AAU basketball tournaments that happen every weekend, weekend in and weekend out. People coming into Fort Wayne, staying at our hotels, eating at our restaurants, shopping at our malls, not one dime of public investment.
And your rebuttal.
Not only is Harrison Square bringing in ultimately millions of dollars into this community, but the project itself has brought in an investor who's willing to put up $52 million. And the Wizards are going to be paying in excess of $400,000 a year in operating expenses. Plus we have Renaissance Point, we have the North River Project, all coming in towards the heart of our city, towards the neighborhood that is Fort Wayne.
Our next question is from our partners, the Anthony Wayne Rotary Club. There has been much talk about developing the rivers as a way to bring business to downtown. Before this would have a chance of working, the rivers themselves would have to be cleaned up and made more attractive. How would you approach solving this problem?
It is an enormous problem, Heather, and the people of Fort Wayne, I think, are aware that we're pumping raw sewage into our rivers 102 to 105 days a year. In the year 2005, I think over 130 times we pumped raw sewage into our rivers. It is one of the most important issues we can do if we want to be a green city, an environmentally friendly city. We must make more substantial progress separating our older sewers. The combined sewer overflow issue is not new. We've known about this for 35 years. But it's time we get about correcting the problem. I know that there is a plan in place. You can rely on me as your mayor to move expeditiously and to work with our delegation in Washington to find additional resources to expedite resolving this plan. We should admire our neighbors in New Haven who are now 98% separated. Now, it didn't happen without some cost, and I know there's some uneasy folks in New Haven about the rates that they're currently paying, but they have done the difficult work of getting this separation accomplished. There's really there's no legitimate way to talk about redeveloping the shoreline of our rivers, the riverbanks themselves, because the rivers are so polluted on a regular basis currently. So I think first things first, let's separate our sewers, clean up our rivers, and then make privately held property along the riverbanks, open those up for development in the private sector, not with government-driven projects.
All right, Mr. Henry.
You know, we did inherit a problem, our generation, and that is the CSO problem, the combined sewer overflow problem. And that is simply that everything goes into one pipe. And we are now being mandated by the federal government, an unfunded mandate, which means we have to pay for it, to separate those sewers. And that's a good thing. But it's going to take time and it's going to take money. Right now, our current plan, we are under a 20-year plan. It will take us about 12 years to finish up the St. Joe River, and probably an additional 8 years to finish up the St. Mary's and the Maumee. The price of that, unfortunately, will probably be somewhere around $400 to $500 million over the next 20 years. And that will be reflected on utility rates. Again, it's a situation that we inherited. We didn't have any control over it. But we need to do it to clean up those rivers. We also need to continuously look for opportunities for residential and commercial development along the rivers. We're getting inquiries already, particularly the St. Joe River North, from this campus north. We're getting inquiries for residential and commercial development. And they want to develop with ecology in mind, which is superb. I also want to work with our riverbanks and our River Greenway project try to put them together so that when you do utilize our river greenway, that the river banks are attractive to look at. We're never going to have pretty rivers. We're never going to have pristine rivers. Rivers come in three banks, or three bottoms: a sand bottom, a gravel bottom, or a muck bottom. Guess what we have? So they're never going to be pristine looking, but we can certainly do a lot of work on the river banks and tie those into River Greenway to make it as attractive as possible. Thank you.
And your rebuttal.
My only hope is that whether it takes us 8 years because we're committed to separating our sewers more quickly, or 12 years, or however long it takes, it's taken 35 years so far, my only hope is that there's a city that still has some energy left at the end of those 12 years. At the rate that we're losing jobs currently, at the rate that we're losing residents currently, that is a legitimate concern, I think. I spoke to a young business professional, 34 years of age, who moved here a year ago with his family. And after the property tax increase, he told me recently, "Matt, I'm going back to Michigan." We have to resolve that issue as well.
Our next question will be directed to Tom Henry first. It comes from one of our viewers. In our News Channel 15 News Sentinel poll, there's that poll again, economic development was the most important issue in determining who people will vote for as the next mayor of Fort Wayne. What's your plan to keep the jobs we have while at the same time attracting more companies to locate in Fort Wayne?
One of the linchpins of my plan for economic development in the city is an employer-educator summit, which I will attempt to put together during my first year in office. And what I'm going to attempt to do is to put together in the same room a good cross-section of our current employer base, along with some potential employers, and set them across the table from the chancellors and the presidents of our universities and our colleges and our vocational training centers, and representatives from our high schools in all four systems, and discuss the opportunities that our children, that our young students, the opportunities that we need to develop for them, because we're losing young people because we don't have the jobs for them. And we're not getting the jobs because we don't have the curriculums to meet the needs of potential employers. We need to get those two groups together and create a dialogue. That's the only way we're going to meet both of those needs.
Matt Kelsey, what's your plan to attract new jobs and keep the ones we have?
I agree that the young people who come to Fort Wayne are looking for great opportunities to build a career. It is unfortunate that the Harrison Square project, while sucking millions of dollars from your pockets here in Fort Wayne in terms of that heavily publicly subsidized project, and really the only jobs we're getting in return are some hot dog vendors from Coliseum that moved to Harrison Square. But I think there really is a three-step project, a three-step program for achieving more robust economic development. First of all, in Fort Wayne, we must create the right environment. That means government must move more quickly. It must keep up with the pace of the private sector. As an architect, if I want to achieve an improvement location permit for my client to get a building permit, I should be able to make that application online. There are dozens and dozens of applications that need to be made online. We ought to be able to get that improvement location permit the same day, not 3 days later, or if you're lucky, or not 10 days later, or if you're lucky, maybe 3 days later. We need to do a better job keeping up pace with the private sector. Secondly, we need to make sure that the public dollars used in economic development are used wisely. I said this earlier in a press release regarding economic development. We need to know what kind of jobs are going to be produced from the public's dollars invested in economic development. What kind, how many, does it build on an existing strength? Does it create a new strength? And most importantly, does it rebuild what is becoming a quickly eroding property tax base? Those are critical issues that need to be answered in a concrete, measurable way before your money are plowed into some questionable economic development. We've seen already Burlington Express, Microstandard, now Kitty Hawk. I'll do the best I can with regard to Harrison Square. But finally, let me say, the linchpin is having a mayor willing to market with boundless energy the city of Fort Wayne to the region, to the nation, and to the globe, selling the services and products of the city of Fort Wayne around the world, around the nation, in this region, and bringing companies to Fort Wayne because it's a great place to own a business.
Tom Henry, your rebuttal.
One other program that I'm going to bring besides the introduction of a summit into our community is a small group of business advocates that will work out of the mayor's office. Their job will be to go out on a daily basis and thank businesses for being in our community. Thank you for your investment. Thank you for creating jobs. Thank you for cash flow in our community. Now, what can we as a city do to help you grow your business? What can we do to help you create more jobs? That needs to be done.
Our next question will be directed to Matt Kelty first. Talk about a leader from the 20th century you'd like to emulate and how you would emulate that person.
Well, there are two probably, and I'm sorry, I know you asked for one. And I'll use the first example is His Holiness Pope John Paul II, because he led with strength and grace and dignity and humility. I mean, he was a powerful leader, but he was also very humble. And so I admire him enormously. But I have to tell you, I also admire John F. Kennedy. I have always admired him for his forthrightness, for his brashness, for what seemed to me to be an innovative approach. And frankly, in today's political spectrum, a rather conservative approach. He came from a large Catholic family, larger than my own. I was the fourth of 6 children. But I think that the nation was caught up in the hope that he represented. He's inspired me many times, and I think that his service to his nation and his very tragic death has cemented him in my mind as one of our great leaders of the 20th century. And I guess finally, if I have to pick a third, Ronald Reagan, because of the grace, charm, and eloquence with which he executed the office of the U.S. presidency. Those 3 individuals in particular really inspire me. You know, those are big shoes to fill, frankly, and it would take a lifetime, it would take dozens of lifetimes for me to get close to any one of them, let alone all 3 of them. But it's a good question. All 3 have inspired me and continue to.
And Tom Henry, a leader from the 20th century you would like to emulate, and how you would emulate that person.
Well, if my opponent chose several, then I'm going to choose 2. I first choose John Kennedy as well. I guess it's because we're both Catholic and we're both raised that John Kennedy, you better admire, he was a Catholic as well. But truly, he brought a lot of issues to the forefront that needed to be addressed at the time. Certainly racial tension in our country, and he fought it vigorously. And his brother Bobby followed suit. He exhibited leadership style and a motivation to lead this country that I don't think has been matched since. So from a leadership perspective, there's no question he is a leader in the 20th century that I would try to emulate. And since you didn't specifically say what type of leader, the second leader that I would emulate is my father. My father gave decades to this community in the field of social work. He dedicated his life to helping the poor, the disenfranchised, those who felt alienated. Not only that, but he welcomed people into the community who had nowhere else to go. The Vietnamese, the Burmese, and other immigrants. He counseled people who had not only family problems, but he placed thousands of children in this community up for adoption. What better man to follow than my father? Thank you.
And Matt Kelty, 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
The only thoughts I might add in addition have to do with what I think distinguishes leadership, and whether it is the examples that I gave or the example that Tom has given, including his father, is how a leader deals with adversity. You know, it's pretty easy to be a leader when things are going great. It's enormously difficult to lead when things aren't going great. I hope the people of Fort Wayne can appreciate the difficult time we've had this summer dealing with all the issues, and my most sincere effort to lead with grace.
Our next question will first be directed to Tom Henry. The areas in which administration touches most of our lives are the basic services, trash pickup, snow removal, sewer, water service. Are these being delivered well now, and how would things be different if you were elected?
I believe they are being handled and treated very well currently. Our current administration has implemented a number of management programs that have not only saved this city $25 million over the past 8 years, but are proving to be extremely efficient, cost-effective programs. It used to be, when there was a pothole, it would take days to fill that pothole. Now we fill it in hours. We have a number of departments now that have inventory controls that never existed before, or minimally. So I would not only continue to utilize those management tools, particularly in those areas that have already proven to be good, cost-effective programs, but I would probably take it a step further and add some additional departments.
Mr. Kelty.
Well, I think that pothole repair is a great example to use, and I compliment Graham Richard. Mayor Graham Richard has done a good job accelerating the rate at which potholes are repaired in the city of Fort Wayne. But I think we can do better. And in fact, I think if I went to private sector providers of a similar service, I could get bids that would actually fix potholes more quickly for less money and do a better job. In fact, I tried this in Indianapolis some years ago, and the city street department won the bid. You know, when city government is asked to sharpen its pencil and compete like a private sector business, oftentimes they come back with stunning results. I think it's an appropriate analysis to bring. But at the same time, I would differ from Tom in that I think we need to do a better job with snow removal in particular in some areas of the city of Fort Wayne, whether it's newly annexed areas of Pine Valley or Aboit Township or Washington Township. They have chosen to hire their own private snow removal companies at an expense to the homeowners in their neighborhood association because they can't rely on the city to get out there and plow their streets. So, I think we have a long way to go to say that we're doing a great job across the board. I know that administrating a city is also enormously difficult, and you can't be everywhere all at once. But I do think another area where we could improve services in our policing. It's one of those primary aspects of providing city service, municipal service, one of the most legitimate functions of local government. And I think community-oriented policing is a far more effective way, builds morale, creates a legitimate relationship between the local police officer and folks in the neighborhood where they know they can rely on that officer to get a response from city government because he has been empowered by the mayor to call a department and get action on some issue. So I think there are areas where we can improve substantially, areas we can improve marginally, and areas we might be surprised at the improvement that we get if we think out of the box like the private sector would in trying to maximize return on your investment.
And your rebuttal.
There are certain services that the city already contracts out that has proven to be a good move. Our trash pickup was put out for bid and was awarded. Our recycling contract was put out for bid and was awarded. But there are some services that we, in fact, do better and cheaper than the private sector. Our leaf pickup program is one. Our snow removal program is another one. And I happen to think that we do a magnificent job of snow removal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the Anthony Wayne Rotary Club, and you will answer first, Matt Kelty. You disagree on how to approach the coordination of the community's economic development groups. Mr. Henry favors forming a coordinating council. You do not. Would each of you please clarify your positions on this?
It's a great question for a variety of reasons. At any given time, if we are aware that a company is looking at relocating in Fort Wayne, there are at least a half a dozen other companies looking at Fort Wayne that we don't even know about. What do they see when they look into Fort Wayne in terms of economic development efforts, economic development resources, people they can go and talk to about ways to find a building, secure municipal services for their operation? Right now we have the Fort Wayne-Allen County Economic Alliance. We have a separate group with the city doing economic development group. We have a group with the county doing economic development work. We have a Chamber of Commerce. It's a different kind of economic development work. We've got brownfield redevelopment. We have the Brownfield Redevelopment Commission. We have the Urban Enterprise Zone. We have a myriad of organizations. So I think, again, to go back to the example I gave you earlier, the private sector would not put up with this clutter. We have to do a better job streamlining this so that those people looking at Fort Wayne see that we're organized, they can get the information they want, so they can choose to come to our city, because it's easy to get data, to find out what they need in order to set up their operation in our community. And if they don't have everything they need, they can go to the mayor's office or to Rob Young, one of the finest guys in economic development that I've ever worked with, and get the data they need. And furthermore, I think that we ought to find ways to support the work that Rob Young does. Rob Young in the Fort Wayne-Allen County Economic Alliance is enormously talented. He makes a lot happen with the resources he's given. But I think we can give him the resources he needs for specialists to focus on our areas of strength, whether it's biomedical research, whether it's logistics, whether it's the military-industrial complex. The Army Science Board came to Fort Wayne a month ago. They were astonished at what they found. They said Fort Wayne is the best-kept secret in the nation. We can help Rob Young help us.
Mr. Henry.
I favor putting together an Economic Development Coordinating Council consisting of existing programs that already are trying to help us with job retention, job attraction, and the marketing of our region as a good place to do business. We have about a half a dozen groups out there doing it. The Alliance, which is a combined effort between the City of Fort Wayne and the Chamber of Commerce and the County of Allen. We have the Northeast Indiana Economic Development Council. We have Work One. We have the Innovation Center. We have a number of groups out there all trying to do what's best. And yet, they don't talk to each other on a regular basis. And I think that's unfortunate. So I point to ask for the development of a coordinating council where a representative from each one of those groups would sit down with me as mayor and discuss what we're all doing to make sure we're all on the same page, all going in the same direction. Because we don't want to duplicate effort, and we certainly don't want to duplicate expenditure of dollars. And I think through that coordinated effort, we can really move this region forward. Thank you.
30 seconds for your rebuttal.
Yeah, and Tom, really I think that the answer is not another government-driven board or commission or blue ribbon panel. I think the answer is to give Rob Young the authority and the ability to coordinate this work that he could effectively use, whether it's him specifically or under the auspices of the Fort Wayne-Allen County Economic Alliance. If we're going to call it an alliance, let's make it truly an alliance and let them coordinate the work they're good at. They're the pros. So I think we can find better results by giving them control and a coordinated response.
Tom Henry gets our next question first. It comes from one of our viewers. What will you do to revitalize and rebuild the southeast side of Fort Wayne?
The southeast side of Fort Wayne is a wonderful place to live and to work and now to shop. There's so much promise in the south part of town. It's unfortunate that for many years it had a stigma. But we are working so hard now to get rid of that stigma. There are wonderful neighborhoods out there that are working daily, vigorously, 24/7 to make sure that that whole area reaches its potential. Many of you are aware of what's going on at South Town Center with the Menards and the Walmart, the other new stores that are growing in that area, new restaurants, and our wonderful new Public Safety Academy, a world-class facility that is so new and so world-class that the federal government is sending agencies here to look at what we have. Boy, talk about a statement for our community. I will work with the south and southeast part of town on a continuous basis until they reach the potential that they really deserve. They've been neglected too long. Thank you.
Matt Kelty.
Thank you for the question, Mark. You know, whether it's the south side of Fort Wayne or the north side of Fort Wayne or the east side of Fort Wayne or the west side, all areas of Fort Wayne need more jobs. At the end of the day, it's about how many jobs, of what kind, how much will they pay, are they building on an existing strength or creating a new one? Are we stabilizing and building our property tax base? In the context of the south side of Fort Wayne, you know, this goes to the very heart of why I entered this race to begin with. And again, whether you're on the south side of Fort Wayne or the north side or the east or the west, you know, there is a dignity that you can achieve as an individual by being able to find a good job that allows you to take care of your obligations, provide food for your family, shelter, transportation, pay your bills. I mean, this is something I experienced as a young father. Tammy and I bought our first home in 1993, and I thought, there's no way, $400 a month for our mortgage, I'll never be able to do it. And after 6 months of hard work, kept the gutters clean, the grass cut, you know what? I stood up a little taller, and I realized I can do this. I can play a role in this neighborhood. Whether that opportunity lends itself to someone in the southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, whatever quadrant. I mean, there are pockets of poverty and wealth and beauty and disappointment around every quadrant of our city. I will say this. There is nothing that any of those people in Fort Wayne want more than, so regardless of where you are, in which quadrant, what is most necessary is an opportunity to provide for your obligations. And I think that government has a role to play in terms of providing basic services and infrastructure, but let's let the private sector finally provide to Fort Wayne what it's best at. Let's get government out of the way, lower taxes, lower regulation, make Fort Wayne the best place in the U.S. to own a company. If that happens, we're going to have all kinds of great problems to deal with as new neighborhoods are redeveloped in older areas of the city, as new neighborhoods are built outside the city, and we can't keep up with the infrastructure, as businesses grow. You know, so these are the problems we hope we have.
And Tom Henry, your rebuttal.
Unfortunately, there are citizens in our community that feel alienated, that feel disenfranchised, that feel that they are truly not a part of our community. And unfortunately, many of those individuals live in the southeast part of our community. That's why it's important for your next mayor to stand up and truly put unity back into community.
Gentlemen, thank you. Take a breather. We'll be back with closing statements in just a moment.
You depend on News Channel 15 to be your source for election coverage.
You have a variety of sources available, but you choose News Channel 15 to keep you well informed.
Hard-hitting political analysis with Paul Helmke and Win Moses.
Get the information you need to make up your mind in November.
The knowledge, the analysis, the power of professional journalism. Heather Herron and Mark Mellinger lead News Channel 15's team of anchors and reporters to deliver election coverage you can count on.
It's one of the greatest freedoms that we have in this country. I'm Paul Helmke.
And I'm Win Moses. Don't take democracy for granted. Find out where and how to vote. Visit IndianaVoters.com or Wayne.com.
It's your right, it's your choice. Don't forget to vote on November 6th.
She's a scholar and award-winning author who recently worked with presidential hopeful and U.S. Senator Barack Obama. Hear her November 13th in the new Reinhardt Music Center at IPFW.
You're watching Wayne TV, CBS Fort Wayne.
And welcome back to this Focus 15 special, the Fort Wayne mayoral debate.
We have time for one more question before we begin closing arguments. We do not have time for a rebuttal. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer this last question. And we begin with Mr. Kelty. If elected mayor, would you push for city-county consolidation?
No. In fact, I think that pushing for city-county consolidation is absolutely the wrong thing to do, because as government grows larger and moves further away from the people, it generally spends more money, less efficiently, and is not as responsive to the needs of the citizens. I think that the fact is there have been aspects of consolidation occurring for the last 40 years. If you look at the 1960s, we consolidated our health departments. In the 1970s, we consolidated the building departments. Recently, we consolidated the departments of Homeland Security. There's more that we can do and should do. And I would advocate that we blend or merge the departments of purchasing, human resources, emergency communications. I had a very clearly structured proposal on this earlier in the campaign. Our Parks Department could be merged. You know, it's not It's not for us to consolidate and make one government. It's to find ways to deliver more value to the taxpayer from each dollar that's coerced out of your wallet. I think that is the mindset that I would bring to that issue. In addition, I would say it's not so much that we should merge as it is that we should reach out to our neighbors in Leo Cedarville, Huntertown, Auburn, Garrett, New Haven, Woodburn, and develop a strong alliance that's mutually beneficial. We live in a regional economic a regional metropolitan, if you will. And what's good for Garrett is good for Fort Wayne. What's good for Fort Wayne is good for Columbia City. We rise and fall together.
Would you push for city-county consolidation?
At this time, I do not advocate combining our executive and legislative branches. But I believe that there are a number of opportunities between the two governmental groups to work together. And one of those areas is purchasing. I had the pleasure for a number of years to work in the healthcare industry, where we worked together with dozens of hospitals in combining our group purchasing, or our purchasing efforts, because we were all buying the same products, all from pretty much the same vendors, but we had separate contracts. So we wisely chose the Sam Walton approach and started buying in bulk, started realizing true bang for the buck. You buy Walmart perhaps, or at Sam's Club or other big box stores because of the savings you receive. We can do that with the city and the county. In fact, we can do it with the entire region. I've already taken the liberty of meeting with all of the mayors in the cities that surround Allen County and asked them if they would join me in that effort. And they're excited to do so. We can all get together and form our own regional group purchasing organization to buy governmental products together and pass the savings on to the citizens.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We now have time for closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes. Mr. Henry, you began our opening statements. We begin with you with closing statements.
My name is Tom Henry, and I want to be your mayor. I am passionate about this city, and I care deeply about those who live here, about all of you. And not only those with me today, but I care deeply about those who will follow, who will become citizens of Fort Wayne in the future. In 6 days and about 10 hours, 11 hours and a few minutes, you will be electing a new mayor. Electing a mayor is not unlike hiring someone for a job. You're going to take a look at their educational experience, their employment experience, their military experience perhaps, and determine whether or not they have the qualifications and the values to run your city for the next 4 years. I believe I'm the person for that job. I humbly request that you support me on November the 6th. Thank you.
And Mr. Kelty, your final statement tonight.
Well, thank you, Heather, and thank you, Mark, and my special thanks to Wayne TV for bringing both Tom and I this opportunity, for bringing the voters of Fort Wayne this opportunity. You know, the city of Fort Wayne, before I begin, I need to thank my wife, Tammy, who has done such a great job with me all along. Thanks, love. The city of Fort Wayne is a city of makers and doers. It's a city of creativity and invention. From the city of Fort Wayne have come inventions and products that have changed the way we live, not only here, but the way people live all over the world. It's a rich heritage, and I think it is our obligation to transform that inheritance into something rich and powerful for the future. I think that the most effective way of achieving that future for our children and grandchildren is to reduce the interference of government, to allow the private sector to yield to us as a community rich opportunities for economic development, sustainable jobs driven not by the government, but by the private sector. You know, what I believe I bring to this race and to the office of mayor is new ideas, new energy, a great passion for this city. I will reach out, as a friend of mine recently told me, CEOs in the contemporary world do three things primarily. They set the agenda, the mission, and then they find acutely talented people who they place in specific managerial roles. And then they leverage strategic sales. I want an opportunity to not only set the mission for the city of Fort Wayne based on conservative principles that believes in the people and returns the power of advocacy to the people and to the small business owners, but also gives me a chance to leverage strategic marketing around the region so that Fort Wayne in the future becomes a city consistent with its past. You know, for a long time I have held a strong belief that when Ronald Reagan spoke of the city on the hill, he was talking about the summit city, Fort Wayne. Thank you.
And that wraps up our Focus 15 mayoral debate for this evening. Thank you for joining us, but thank you to both of our candidates,
Thank you.
Tom Henry, Matt Kelty. We appreciate you taking part in this tonight.
Yeah, let's give them a quick round of applause. I'm not quite done. We also want to thank our partners in this, the Anthony Wayne Rotary Club, along with IPFW, the Mike Downs Center for Indiana Politics, College Access TV, and Comcast. Thank you so much for making this happen tonight.
And if you missed any of tonight's debate, we want you to know that you can watch it in its entirety. It will be posted on Wayne.com, and you won't have to miss a minute of it. You will also, if you go to Wayne.com, find the results of our exclusive poll from News Channel 15 and the News Sentinel. Some very important information located there.
Yeah, and there's a politics page if you go to Wayne.com as well. We think you'll find that very helpful as we are just a week to go until the election now. So again, the website is Wayne.com, the politics page, or if you want to relive this debate again, you can go there and do that in its entirety. Again, thank you to the candidates. Thank you for the crowd. I'm sorry, I might have told everybody to applause a little early, so that's my bad. I apologize for that. But a good debate, good substantive discussion, and we thank you for it. For now, I'm Mark Mellinger.
And I'm Heather Herron. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you get out and vote next Tuesday.
Introducing the new Jeep Liberty with a completely redesigned